And the little red light is on.
Okay. So, Bob, how did you first hear about Learning Forward New Jersey and get involved with that organization?
So I had been I had just finished a graduate program. I actually finished my doctoral work, um, and I had been a classroom teacher for years. And I started doing some workshops on technology, science, just local stuff in my own kind of local sphere. And then within a year or so, I moved on and I got a job as a supervisor of curriculum at a larger center where we actually served a whole multiple districts. And I was all excited to get this job. But now I'm responsible for creating workshops on multiple fronts. So a little bit panicky. But I
Yeah.
was lucky enough to have a partner who dragged me to a Learning Forward New Jersey meeting, which really was the beginning of my whole. There are people out there who know a lot more about this than I do, and they are so willing to share their ideas and their resources. So that was kind of my jumping off point. And then luckily, that very first year in that new department, the department planned for the four of us to go to the national convention, which was at Texas, which was a really big deal for me. This was going to be my kind of first educational job field experience. So those two things made the introduction to Learning Forward for me.
And did you mention that your colleague had attended the Learning Forward Academy?
Yes, yes. So um, I'm asking her about structure of workshops and what she's doing, and I'm observing some of what she's done, and I'm um, you know doing some planning of my own. And I'm noticing that she has an enormous set of resources. So very quickly, she was explaining to me the several years she had spent going to the Learning Forward Academy, and then she became my go-to, certainly my go-to resource for, do you have any ideas about this? Plus, that we really worked together to plan a lot of these workshops. So there was a lot of blending of ideas. And then even the introduction to the people from around the state was also very helpful because there were several people in Learning Forward New Jersey at that time who had gone to the academy. It was really expanding my sphere. If I hadn't made this extra jump, I would have really been kind of trapped in my little one district view of things.
So then how did your involvement with Learning Forward New Jersey change your thinking about how to deliver professional learning in your role?
I think the biggest change at that time, and this was quite a few years ago. I was trying to think about this. That I was trying to think about that trip to Texas, and just to give you a time period, I sent my first text message at that with the
Right.
keyboard, figuring out all the different letters. It'll only take like
Right.
10
Yeah.
minutes to send
Ex-
one text.
Yeah.
So it was quite a while ago. And I think the biggest shift was the idea of from just training, another training session, another training workshop, making that shift to continuous learning. That learning is part of the broader curriculum, moving forward all the time, not separate, not separate and extra. So that changed the work I was doing as a supervisor, and then as I moved to becoming a director, it really was the foundational thinking to creating like a professional learning academy.
So it sounds like it kind of widened your horizons as far as who you were getting information from and listening to, but also gave you a network of like-minded professionals to help, marinate these ideas and polish them with you.
Yeah, I think that having that group of peers to talk to, I know many times we would call some of these ideas like the next harebrained scheme, and then if you throw it out to a group, uh, they can either rein it in or give you that critique, which is really really helpful. But also sometimes it seems like a really challenging idea, but someone else has already done some work around that, and there are some strong frameworks or protocols to take, and it becomes much more realistic. So how
So,
about you? It's like
so
that's my beginning story. Which how did you get pulled into this?
So I, had been a teacher for, 20 years, and I took my first leadership role as a curriculum coordinator in a small district. And I received an email about a conference in New Jersey at the PSE&G Center
Mhm.
in, what is that, Edison?
Yep, right on
And
Route 1. Yep.
I decided to sign up and attend that conference. And at the time, at the district level, I had heard about PLCs, professional learning communities. I had, learned about them, and I was trying to implement them in this district where they had not existed previously. So I was looking for more skills, more tools in that area, and I went to my first workshop at that conference. And do you know who was the presenter at that workshop that I attended?
As soon as you say it, I'm gonna remember where I was sitting. But,
So it was you
oh,
inside the
no, I was
breakout
standing
session.
up front then. Okay.
You were standing up front with your colleague Linda,
Okay.
and you were presenting some options for PLCs. There were different things like book clubs. They were all entry points for groups of teachers who had not participated in a professional learning community before. And so this was kind of a way in. And it was very helpful to me because, again, I was in a district where they had never participated in professional learning communities. There was a little bit of resistance,
Mhm.
and I was able to get some entry points to start having teachers think about, how can we collaborate? How can we talk about our profession? How can we talk about the learning we need to do as teachers that will impact student learning? I also ended up through Learning Forward New Jersey, meeting Steve Barkley, a consultant and presenter and blogger. And I ended up bringing him to my district the following September to really launch full-fledged PLCs, and bringing him back for a follow-up, halfway through the year.
Right,
So,
and I bet you wouldn't have thought of reaching out to someone like, Steve Barkley,
no, I wouldn't have.
without having that, like, entry point, right? I never would have
Exactly.
thought that
Right.
we have the access to, national people to come back and
Right.
talk to our little districts. That was another big plus from the Learning Forward, perspective.
Absolutely. And at the end of the conference, there was an evaluation to fill out. And the last question is, are you interested in becoming involved with Learning Forward New Jersey? So I said yes, and got a call probably the next day. Are you really interested? And was asked to join the executive board by Vicky Duff, who I had done some work with when she was at the Department of Ed in New Jersey.
That's interesting. Just having this conversation, it takes me back to all, like, the little pieces.
Right.
I did not know that story about I was up there on that stage when you went there. Um, and that idea of even getting out there and doing these workshops and meeting people from around the state and getting different bits of feedback, the resources, the books. There's so many different pieces that I don't think we really, consider,
Right.
because we become used to having the resource there and being
Right.
able to reach out to someone else and talk about an idea is such a bonus.
Yes. Well, you talked about how, meeting world experts or hearing world experts and reading what they'd written broadened your horizons. But for me, in less populated South Jersey, I think my education world was pretty small until Learning Forward. I
Mm,
had connections in South Jersey, but not really anywhere else. And as you said, like working with the other members and board members, my horizons were suddenly broadened because, as you said, you're struggling with something and somebody else has done it in a district, or they know someone who has. There's so much networking and collaborating and sharing with colleagues. My world kind of exploded after joining Learning Forward New Jersey.
yeah, I
Uh,
think that even, for those people who don't understand New Jersey, it's enormous. It's huge. It takes all of 3 hours to drive from one point to the other, but we have a north and a south, and I'm working all the way up in the north, and normally we would never collaborate with someone down in the south.
right.
But I can remember taking your the data you had collected around standards-based
Right,
grading, and weaving that into workshops and using your data to show how things can be
right,
done. I never would have found that if we weren't
right,
talking about those things together. So,
right. Yeah,
so I think as our kind of initial blurb on how we got involved with learning forward, it's great because I'm learning new stories as we move along.
yep. Learn new things with learning forward every day.
So what we're trying to do here is get other people to listen to our stories, um, with the hope that you'll join us in this conversation and this journey, um, that is all about positive things in your learning, positive things for your students, and I think it sustains a career. It really helps to sustain your career.
It does. Lots of support in a difficult profession.
All right. So until next time,
Okay,
we'll
thanks.
talk about something else. All
Thank you.
right.